Welcome to the Banega Swasth India Podcast. Our focus this season is One Health, One Planet, One Future. Our aim is health for all and leaving no one behind, because only a Swasth Bharat can be a Sampann Bharat. I am Ambika Singh Kama, and today we will be talking about inclusion and economic empowerment of the persons with disabilities. According to the World Health Organization, 15% of the world's population lives with some form of disability, out of which 80% reside in developing countries like India. The pandemic has hit people differently, leaving some more devastated than others. If we talk about the economic empowerment of people with disability, we see that in India the employment rate of people with disabilities is abysmal. Joining us first on the podcast is Gaurav Vasu, founder and CEO of UnearthInsight, an organization that has recently highlighted in its report that India has almost 3 crore people with disability, of whom around 1.3 crore are employable, but only 34 lakh have been employed across organized, unorganized sector, government-led schemes, or are self-employed.
Thank you so much, Ambika. I'll give you a little background about the study. Predominantly, UnearthInsight has been working on in talent research space for close to 4 years now. And one of the constant asks, Ambika, that we would have from our clients is around a lot of our clients are technology, services, and software product development and startups. So one of the questions that would come from them is, can you help us, achieve our PWD targets? Today we are, let's say, 0.5% of our headcount, which is people with disability, and we want to actually achieve that to about 1 to 2% of our employment, right? And while doing that, what we discovered, Ambika, was there is a vast difference between the literate PwC employment demand and also the other part of the talent, right, which is still not crossed the literacy threshold, right? And we constantly would do about 1 or 2 studies each year for the same client, or in some cases multiple clients from the same industry. That's when we thought, why not UnearthInsight takes a step back and look at the entire PWD talent in India, right? And what percentage of that is literate? When we say literate, again, we looked at them from a different industries, right? Not only would they be literate from a technology services industry, product industry, but they would also be literate when it comes to, let's say, retail industry, or they would also be relevant for, let's say, the government jobs, right, or semi-skilled jobs. So the study covered the entire landscape of PWD talent in India, right? Those who are above the age of 18 to 19, and those who could be potentially employed across banking to FMCG to retail to technology, and again BPO, and under technology we also looked at product versus services split. That was the intent of the study, was purely to understand the overall gamut of talent available there, and how can we help companies find ready to deploy talent.
If like that's about the study, but if I ask you a very simple question, I mean, since you're working on this, tell us how important, according to you, because you're meeting so many people, you're doing these studies, and also with the employers, how important is it that we include this talent pool of people? When we talk about inclusion, diversity, we talk about sustainable development goals. How important is it to include the persons with disability for an economy, in the sense a growing economy? How can they contribute? Even the GDP gets affected. There's a World Bank report. There's a report also from the International Labour Organization.
Absolutely. I think very relevant question, Ambika. So when you say include them in the workforce, also look at it from the perspective that companies want to include them within their own workforce. And that's how we should take a look at this at a country level, that we have about close to 3 crore PWD talent. Now, when we include them in our workforce, obviously you understand that there's a potential GDP impact of anywhere between 0.15 to 0.25% on the GDP, because there are different skilled people who get into the industry. There could be somebody who's running his own business, which the government is encouraging today and giving them subsidies and giving them opportunities, or they could be somebody employed with an SAP or a Microsoft, and they also earn a living for themselves and also contribute back to the society in terms of the taxes that they pay. It is extremely important to include this talent, both from a growth perspective and also from the inclusiveness from an enterprise's perspective, and also the fact that a lot of the PWD talent brings about unique skills, right? I mean, I can highlight a couple of them, but for example, autism. is a skill which is really looked after when it comes to autism. Talent is really something that's looked after when it comes to your product development or your analytics industry, right? So it's extremely important to include them, a from the top line perspective, as we call it in the corporate world, which is your GDP, and b from the diversity that they bring in terms of the knowledge and in terms of the contribution that they can do.
So, about the study, you've also seen that are they self-employed, are they in the government sector, organized, unorganized. So tell us a little bit about the study, that where did you see that there were more people employed?
So when I look at the organized sector, Ambika, especially two sectors clearly stand out when it comes to including them, giving them the right opportunities, creating the right workforce, and also the workplace environment for them. One was retail industry, and this retail includes all your retail chains like Cafe Day, Coffee Day versus Tata, Starbucks, all of these. They today employ in the organized job sector close to over 15,000 plus people, right? Who are different categories of disabilities. The second comes your technology industry. Now, technology industry again includes your BPO related jobs as well. But under the technology industry, you have close to about 8 to 10,000 people who are employed across software product versus BPOs versus the other alternate sectors. Then the other third sector, which has actually picked up in the last few years, is actually the banking sector. SBI alone today employs over 5,000 people who are disabled and contributing. Now, that is a combination of your organized plus unorganized kind of jobs. But banking sector has really picked up in the last couple of years. So this is purely on the organized side. I think unorganized side, it's a lot more spread out. It could be your kirana stores, it could be in supporting sectors of your oil and gas industries. But I think organized is something that we believe in the next wave of next 5 years is where a lot of the literate PWD talent will actually get a lot of exposure.
Now joining us is Esteban Chomel, Senior Disability Specialist at the International Labour Organization. The International Labour Organization's approach to the inclusion of persons with disabilities is grounded in both assuring the rights of persons with disabilities as well as recognizing the economic benefits of inclusion.
A few years back, we did a study to assess the impact it would have if persons with disabilities would have the same employment levels as the non-disabled population. And we came up with an increase of 3 to 7% of the GDP. I think it's important that policymakers and other stakeholders stop thinking about the investments that are required for persons with disabilities to be able to fully take part in society in terms of assistive technologies, personal assistance, etc. We need to think about these supports that are not only a right for persons with disabilities to get them according to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, but also we need to see them as an investment that will turn persons with disabilities from passive recipients to active citizens and taxpayers.
India is sitting on a huge untapped talent pool of people with disabilities that can play a crucial role in the country's growth. Enable India, an NGO, has been working towards the economic independence and dignity of people with disability since 1999. Joining us now is Shanti Raghavan, founder of Enable India. Shanti, tell us, how did it all start?
Years back, my brother started growing blind at the age of 15. And in the process of rehabilitation, every step of the way, each barrier, we found solutions. And at every stage, he was able to see his own value. And, the journey, we've done kayaking together. We've done different adventure sports also together, which truly, his entire personality is, naughty, funny. And, I can see my brother in that. So this journey, culminated in him working in a MNC. And that's the journey we want for every person in India, right, who is a person with disability. So Enable India started in 1999 with the goal of economic independence and dignity for persons with disability. If you go now to a rural area and see the thousands of folks that have been working thanks to the work we have done along with other NGOs, don't be surprised if you see a panchayat development officer who's blind, who's working, or you'll go and see two women with severe disability giving you petrol in their grocery shop. You come here maybe and you see a person who's deaf-blind, can't see, can't hear, can't speak, is going with his deaf wife, somewhere to eat because the person is earning money. After that, I feel, see what each of persons with disability are doing. They have, gone beyond the limits and are able to see themselves now. And now society is able to see the value they're having to give. As a maybe as an employee, as a parent, as a volunteer, as a active citizen, as a taxpayer. So somewhere within me, I feel like the country, the world, look at each of the folks who have come every step of the way, discovered themselves. So I feel like saying, see this, celebrate this. And I feel what we need to learn from this is go beyond the limits, find joy in every step of the way, finding your own value, finding solutions. So every time I think about disability and the work we do, it's a lot of hard work. We have set up ecosystems, we have set up systems, tools, everything to make the person be on their path towards economic independence. But every step of the way, I only want to say, see how things are happening. It's a celebration of the human spirit.
How many persons with disabilities have been empowered and enabled by Enable India?
So over the years, more than 220,000 stakeholders have been impacted, out of which more than 50,000 persons with disability have had gainful livelihoods. And our work has gone national and international. So our work is across 28 states and abroad. We've been able to open up jobs for people with disability. Today, 81% of persons with disability are supporting their family and 35% are primary bread earners. The salaries may range either from a manual, like very less education, maybe minimum wage, all the way to 66 lakhs per annum, which is just like you or me. So the value for persons with disability has helped us to shift the narrative. So our main impact, along with enabling so many stakeholders and persons with disability, is to shift the narrative on how we view persons with disability and what the person can do.
We now have the co-founder and CEO of Enable India, Dipesh Sutaria, with us to tell us how Enable India is training and empowering the persons with disabilities.
Disability is so diverse because all of us, when we think of disability, we think of one disability, sometimes visual impairment, hearing impairment, various things. But there are 21 types of disabilities, and each disability has a very different way, right? You can imagine a visually impaired is an audio learner, hearing impaired is a visual learner, kind of so many different ways and means to address this area basically. And also on top of it, the complexity of livelihood. Livelihood is difficult for all of us as well. And this is where basically we created this whole thing. How do you address this diverse problem? And this whole diverse problem basically be addressed by creating, and I use the analogy called honeycomb structure, the Madhukosh Ka, right? The honeycomb structure where we see this as a honeycomb with different honeycomb cells. And each cell basically is different. So for example, we have a cell called Enable Vision. And that Enable Vision cell addresses the whole equation of how do you enable and get the person with visual impairment ready for jobs, how do you find different livelihood options and all that and kind of get them ready. We have Enable Deaf, so how do you work on deaf and various things. We have Enable Grameen as well. So this whole Enable Grameen situation also is how do you address the rural population where we have 70% plus persons with disability in the rural areas basically who are there but do not know, even have access to the whole possibilities and all that. So we actually have something called a honeycomb cell called Enable Vani. What is Enable Vani? Enable Vani is actually building aspirations. It's an IVR system in a local language which addresses and creates aspirations for persons with disability in the local areas or the rural areas. So a person in the village will call this number and get access to various possibilities in life and all that. So this is one of the ways to build kind of aspirations. So the idea is creating this whole, we look at honeycomb cells and building these cells in the honeycomb structure and creating the whole system and supporting various disabilities through this. So this is how Enable India is addressing the system, like creating the whole honeycomb structure. The only difference in this whole structure is in a honeycomb, there is only one queen bee. But in our case, basically, we have to create queen bees for every honeycomb cell. And this is how we are addressing the system where each cell is actually led by a person with disability, and that person is now heading it. So this is also how we at Enable India are creating our second line leaders, and they are taking over and kind of working on how to go about. So basically, this is how we are addressing system. We are also creating various collectives, like we have a See a Million campaign, we have a Hear a Million campaign, we have Mission 1000 where we are addressing various very difficult disabilities. We have such situations where we are actually building this through a collective. So that's how we are addressing this. What is the challenge right here? And what we think is basically we need to change the whole narrative. And we say that if you raise the bar, the rest of the things becomes easier. And this is what we strive for. So when we look at any person with disability, when we are trying to find livelihood or job for that person, we actually try to place the most severe person in the job or the livelihood first, because then the rest of the things becomes easier. And this has been our philosophy, and this is what we are working. And there is an interesting story. So one of the MNC companies we worked with about 10 very difficult disability candidates, and we placed them. Person who's deaf-blind, person who's can't move any part of their body, and various kind of such difficult disability. One person actually had to just lie down and work and all that. These kind of disabilities is where basically we started placing people in this multinational company. And this took 1 year, and they got included. The company started seeing benefits of that and all that. And this is where very interesting thing happened, where basically one of the managers started coming back and started saying that, can you give us some normal disabilities? And we were wondering, what is this normal disabilities? So this is what I mean by raising the bar, where basically the whole disability, like visually impaired, hearing impaired, has become normal now. So when you raise the bar, the disability becomes normal. So that's what I mean by kind of raising the bar. Creating a vision, you to address that question, you cannot just say that I will train somebody and do it. It's a very linear thing. So what we are looking at is raising the vision and creating a bar which is higher. So when we place this person with very severe disabilities in this MNC companies, the managers who are hiring people after a year and all that started coming back and said, this is working wonderfully, but can we get some normal disabilities? So this is the whole vision and the narrative we are changing to say, give that higher vision, and then basically the things become normal. So this is the way kind of we are working it. One of the things basically which is very, very excited about, which I am started just now, is I've just launched a Blind Golf Association of India. And imagine a blind person playing golf. You're changing the narrative very differently. A blind person golf, then coming to work, all that becomes normal in that sense. So that's the idea there.
How important is the economic and financial independence of persons with disabilities?
I think if you look at, first of all, persons with disability are also citizens of the country. And they are part of the whole thing. And we have seen that, and I think we will know that there is almost 3 to 4% of the GDP which is foregone by not including persons with disability in the whole working sector. And so one of the things one is making the person with disability part of the sector is one. But now change the narrative completely and see if this is an economy itself. If you look at the economy of accessibility and all that becomes part of a business. Actually, you are not looking at inclusion only, but you are looking at a growth in the entire economy. And if you think differently, like I'm again changing the vision to say, don't try to say I'm solving this problem. I'm actually creating the vision by which the problem can be solved. And this is where basically also one of the things which are required to get that done is to be a learner. And how do you learn from various things? By asking, by doing things and all that. And this is where my story was. Basically, I learned by asking questions to people, saying that when we had a class of visually impaired candidates, I asked them, saying that how do you identify your toothbrush in the morning? And this person basically started saying, yeah, because you're blind, how do you know whether the color is blue, red, which one is your toothbrush? I don't know. And suddenly one hand came up saying that, sir, I just put a elastic band on my toothbrush or a rubber band on my toothbrush, feel it and pick it up. I make a small scratch at the bottom of the toothbrush, feel it, pick it up. Those are the stories, and I think these are solutions. So I think if we can learn by asking and finding out, I think there are so many solutions out there already. And this is where we have a project discovery where we are getting solutions from all over the country. And now it has gone international level where it is part of the United Nations and many countries want to find solutions. It is everyone an innovator. So this is the whole thing which we are looking at. And with that, I think the whole GDP or whatever, I think it becomes part of the system. That's what I think.
And now to share with us the perspective of the employers who are employing persons with disabilities, we have with us Praveen Chand Tatarati, CEO and MD, Allegus Global Solutions, Global Workforce Management.
Journey with Enable India started around 10 years back, and pretty much at the same time our inclusion journey started. For us, inclusion earlier meant being pity, taking care of someone from a sympathy perspective. But over the last 10 years, as we started working with people of disability, our whole definition of inclusion has changed. For us, inclusion means good business sense, inclusion means innovation, inclusion means embracing a large part of the society and large part of the population which has been excluded. And as you include more and more people into your life, life changes a lot. So today, we are very, very excited to work with Enable. We have a lot of people of different disability working with us, and they make us every day a better people. I would urge everyone to experience having a person with disability in your team and see the kind of impact, the kind of changes that can bring into your company, into your organization, and that whole experience actually helps you to serve your customers, get better business results, and make this world comfortable.
Over the last few years, the disability rights movement has been instrumental in effecting inclusive laws, which have proven to be hard-fought victories. The question now is the transition from acceptance to equal partnerships. With this thought, we come to the end of our podcast. If you have comments, queries, or suggestions on the topic we discussed today, or issues you would like us to cover in future, write to us on bsipodcast@ndtv.com. Remember, BSI stands for Banega Swasth India. You can also connect with us on Banega Swasth India handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and continue the conversation through the week. Till next week, this is Ambika Singh Kama signing off. Stay